Dear listeners, welcome to this small space where we share the worries of your hearts. We begin now. Did you believe, dear listeners, that faith in a husband you've loved deeply for 5 years, a man you were proud of for his impeccable perfection, could crumble in an instant over a single photograph? I didn't. I thought my life was like a piece of classical music with a sweet melody. However, it wasn't until the night of our fateful 5th wedding anniversary that I realized, in a state of shock, that this music was actually a pantomime filled with deceit, and I was the only actor who hadn't received the script. That night, when I sent a single text message, I didn't know that in 10 minutes, not only my marriage but also the reputations of 2 prominent families would be reduced to ashes in front of a hotel room door. The soft melody of a violin echoing from the Summit, a restaurant perched atop a skyscraper in the heart of New York City, didn't reach my heart at all. In front of me, a dinner for 2 was perfectly arranged, a vase of red roses, 2 wine glasses gleaming in the candlelight, and a prime dry-aged steak still steaming. Everything was perfect, except for the absence of one person. The man I had loved, dedicating 5 years of my youth to him, my husband Ethan, wasn't there. He had told me a sudden business trip to Chicago had come up, an important contract that couldn't be postponed. He called me with a voice thick with apology and guilt, promising to make it up to me as soon as he returned. I told him with a smile, "Don't worry, your work comes first. I'll be fine alone." I trusted him. I always had, unconditionally. For the past 5 years, Ethan had been, in my eyes and everyone else's, the epitome of the ideal husband. He was not only capable and gentlemanly, but also a man who loved his wife with devotion. He had never disappointed me. He had supported every one of my career decisions and had become a peaceful haven I could lean on after a hard day's work. I considered myself the luckiest woman in the world. I lifted my wine glass slightly, ready to take a solitary sip to commemorate this special, albeit incomplete, day. Just then, the phone resting on the table vibrated silently. It was a message from my one and only best friend, Chloe. I thought it would simply be a congratulatory message for our anniversary, so I opened it, but it wasn't. My heart sank like a stone. On the screen, there was no text, but a photograph, a very clear image. The background was the lavish lobby of the Grand Elysian Hotel, one of the most expensive places in the city. It wasn't Chicago, and the subject of the photo, a man with his back to the camera, but I could never mistake that height, that build. The designer suit I had picked out for him myself last week. It was my husband, Ethan. But he wasn't alone. His hand, the same one that had held mine just this morning, whispering promises, was wrapped around another woman's waist. A young, beautiful woman wearing an emerald silk dress I remembered seeing in a fashion magazine. They were standing very close, the woman's head resting gently on his shoulder. In Ethan's hand was a hotel room keycard, and she was smiling, a radiant, triumphant, and provocative smile. The world around me seemed to shatter. The sound of the violin, the laughter of people, the clinking of glasses in the restaurant, it all suddenly became distant, humming as if from another world. I couldn't hear anything anymore, only the sound of my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. I struggled to breathe. A pain shot through my chest, as if someone were stabbing me with something sharp. A business trip to Chicago, an important contract. It was all a shameless lie. He was right here in Manhattan, checking into a 5-star hotel with another woman, on the night of our 5th wedding anniversary, no less. The pain hit me like a tsunami, washing away all my rationality. Hot, bitter tears began to well up. What had I done wrong? For the past 5 years, I had given my body and soul to this marriage. I had even turned down a promotion to director of the London branch to spend more time with him, and I had trusted him blindly. And the reward was this cruel and devastating betrayal. My hands were trembling so much I nearly dropped my phone. I took a deep breath, trying to wipe away the tears blurring my vision. I zoomed in on the photo to get a closer look at the woman's face, and then an emotion even more terrible than pain washed over me. I recognized her. I had seen her on the cover of a business magazine. It was Victoria Montgomery, the daughter-in-law of Catherine Davenport, the president of the Davenport Corporation. Yes, that Catherine Davenport, known in the business world as the matriarch of Wall Street, famous for her rigor and for valuing her family's reputation above all else. Victoria had been married to Mrs. Davenport's only son for 2 years. The news of their wedding had dominated the papers at the time, and now she was here, in my husband's arms, a married woman having an affair with a married man. This was no longer a simple case of adultery. It was a bombshell that could destroy the reputations of two families. And in that precise moment, a cold, audacious idea crossed my mind. The pain inside me suddenly vanished, replaced by an extreme fury and a steely determination. Ethan, if you want to play for high stakes, I'll play with you. But the loser will definitely not be me. My hands were no longer shaking. My fingers moved swiftly across the screen. It wasn't difficult to find Catherine Davenport's personal contact through my professional network. I took a deep breath, feeling my chest turn as cold as ice. I opened a new message and wrote a brief, polite line, but one sufficient to cause an earthquake. Dear Mrs. Davenport, good evening. This is Emily, Ethan's wife. Might I ask if your daughter-in-law, Mrs. Victoria Montgomery, is currently at the Grand Elysian Hotel for work purposes? I only ask because my husband also told me he had an important meeting there, in room 2109. I just wanted to be sure. Thank you. I reread the message. A bitter smile formed on my lips. Room 2109. The number a private investigator I had secretly hired had sent me along with this photo just a few minutes ago. There was no need to make a scene or storm the hotel. For someone like Catherine Davenport, a small doubt, this tiny spark, was enough for her to burn down the whole forest herself. I hit send. The message was gone. Now, all I had to do was sit here, finish my wine, and wait. I knew that. Given her character, Mrs. Davenport wouldn't call me to verify the facts. She would go there in person, and from her Upper East Side home to the Grand Elysian Hotel, it took exactly 10 minutes. 10 minutes for the greatest show to begin. 10 minutes that would end everything. Dear listeners, how will this play unfold? What cruel truths lie in wait behind the door? If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss the dramatic conclusion that's about to come. Your subscription is a great support for us to continue telling deeper, more meaningful stories. 10 minutes. Such a short span of time, yet for me, it felt like a century. I remained motionless in the red velvet upholstered chair, the wine glass still in my hand. The flickering flame of the candle cast my shadow on the wall behind me, a solitary, desolate shadow amidst this luxurious and romantic space. I wasn't crying anymore. The tears seemed to have dried up, and terrifying emptiness taking their place. In my mind, only images of the past swirled, fragments of sweet memories that, until a few minutes ago, I cherished like treasure. Now, those memories replayed like a slow-motion film, and each frame was like a blade cutting even deeper into my already shattered heart. How could I have been so foolish? How could I have been so blind? For the past 5 years, Ethan had built a perfect paradise without a single flaw, a paradise where I believed I would live forever. I still vividly remember the day we met. It was at a mutual friend's birthday party. Back then, I was a recent graduate, a clumsy and shy junior marketing employee. He, on the other hand, was already a sales director at a large corporation, mature, elegant, and with an irresistible charm. He was the one who approached me first, praising my smile as captivating. Throughout that evening, despite the numerous beautiful women around us, he only talked to me. He told me about his dreams and ambitions, the books he had read, the places he had traveled. He was intelligent, funny, and profound. For me, who only knew work, he was the first person to make me feel how vast and interesting the outside world was. He walked me home that night. Before saying goodbye, he didn't ask for my phone number directly. He just smiled and said, "I hope I'm lucky enough to see you again." That delicate, unhurried approach completely captivated me, and he really did find a way to see me again. He found out where I worked and sent me a bouquet of peonies, my favorite flowers, every day, without leaving a name. On the 7th day, he showed up with an even larger bouquet and a handwritten card. 7 days of courtship. Will you give me a chance? I couldn't refuse such a romantic and persistent man. Our love began naturally and passionately. Ethan was the perfect boyfriend. He always knew how to surprise me. Sometimes it was a romantic dinner cooked by him, other times a weekend trip to a place I had mentioned in passing. He remembered all my preferences, my favorite food, the music I listened to, even my habit of biting my nails when I was nervous. He always appeared when I needed him most. Once, I made a serious mistake at work, and my boss reprimanded me harshly. I was so frustrated I was about to quit. He was the one who stayed by my side all night, listening to my crying, helping me analyze each problem and find a solution. "Honey," he said, holding me, "you are the strongest, most competent woman I know. You can't break down over a little difficulty like this. Trust me, everything will be okay." And it really was okay. His encouragement was like a magic potion that restored my confidence and courage. When he proposed, it was during a dinner at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the entire city. He had prepared everything: flowers, candles, and even a band playing my favorite music. He got down on one knee, offered me a sparkling diamond ring, and said, "Emily, marry me. I can't promise you the richest life in the world, but I promise you the most peaceful and happy one. I will always be the man who supports and protects you." In that moment, I cried with happiness. I nodded, without a second of hesitation. I believed I had found the man of my life. Our marriage was even sweeter than our courtship. Ethan was not just my husband, but also my friend and soulmate. We shared everything, from the small things of daily life to the big plans for the future. He was always proud of me. Every time I had a success at work, he was happier than anyone. He would brag to all his friends and colleagues about what a competent wife he had. He never felt jealous or intimidated, not even when my career took off and my income began to surpass his. He would simply say, "With such an incredible wife, I'll have to work harder to keep up." It was precisely his support that made me work tirelessly. I wanted to be his pride, and I wanted to create a stable home so he could focus on his career with peace of mind. 2 years ago, when I was offered the position of director of the London branch, an opportunity anyone in my field would dream of, I hesitated greatly. It meant we would have to have a long-distance relationship, or he would have to quit his current job and follow me. I discussed it with him, and he said something that moved me deeply. "Emily, your career is important, but our family is more so. I don't want to be separated from you for a single day, but I also don't want to be a burden holding you back. Do what you think is right. Whatever decision you make, I will always be by your side." In the end, I turned down the opportunity. I chose my family. I chose to be by his side every day. At that moment, I didn't regret it at all. I thought no career could compare to the happiness of home. Now, looking back, I realize how stupid I was. Perhaps that was what he wanted. He didn't want me to get too far, to escape his control. He needed me here, in New York, to continue playing the role of the perfect wife in his play. Even my mother-in-law, Patricia, was an indispensable part of that perfect play. She was a retired school principal, with a kind and gentle demeanor. From the first day I came to her house as a daughter-in-law, she treated me like her own daughter. She was never demanding or meddled in our private affairs. Whenever Ethan and I had a small argument, she would always mediate and take my side. "Ethan, a man needs to know when to yield to his wife. Your wife works hard all day. You need to take care of her a bit when she comes home," she would often say. She also used to bring us nutritious food, insisting that I should take care of my health. I truly considered her my own mother and held her in the highest respect and love. I thought I was so lucky to have a wonderful husband and a caring mother-in-law, a perfect home, a perfect love. It was all too perfect, so perfect it seemed fake. The wine glass in my hand had grown cold. I set it on the table, the crystal hitting the marble with a sharp clack. That sound brought me back to cruel reality. The paradise I had lived in for the past 5 years was nothing more than a gilded cage built on lies. And I, a naive canary, had been happily singing inside that cage, knowing nothing. I looked at the photo on my phone again, saw Ethan's smile, Victoria's smile. I suddenly felt nauseous. All those sweet memories had turned bitter. Every promise, every loving gesture had become a clumsy performance. I believed that paradise would last forever, but I didn't know that right under my feet, hell had begun to show its first cracks a long time ago. Looking back over the last 6 months, I realized how clueless I had been. The signs of the cracks had appeared clearly, like wrinkles at the corner of one's eye, but I tried my best to ignore them, rationalizing that married life can't always be a bed of roses. I had been deceiving myself. Or, to be more precise, I had allowed the perfection created by Ethan to hide everything. The first crack began about 6 months ago with his increasingly frequent and sudden business trips. Ethan was a head of sales, and travel was common, but before, he always gave me a week's or even a month's notice. We would pack his suitcases together. I would iron each of his shirts and run all sorts of errands for him. However, lately, his trips had become more abrupt and secretive. "Honey, I have to go to Miami urgently tomorrow. An important partner from the US just arrived." He would usually tell me this late at night when I was already getting ready for bed. It barely gave me time to iron a couple of shirts, and without being able to ask him more, he would leave the next morning before dawn. These trips repeated with increasing frequency. Sometimes it was Miami, other times Chicago, and even some provincial city I had never heard of. He said the company was expanding its market and he had to do field visits, and I believed him. I only felt sorry for his hard work and worried about his health, without the slightest suspicion. Then the late-night meetings began. Before, no matter how busy he was, Ethan always tried to come home for dinner with me. But gradually, our dinners together became scarce. "You eat first. I have a meeting with the president tonight and I'll be late." Those messages became commonplace. I would sit alone at the table with a cold dinner, comforting myself with the thought that he was working hard for his career, for our future together. Some nights, I would fall asleep on the sofa waiting for him. He would return smelling of alcohol and an unfamiliar perfume. He would vaguely explain that he had been entertaining clients and would quickly get into the shower. I once scolded him for drinking too much, telling him to think about his health. He just smiled, hugged me, and said, "It's all for our family." Those words were like a sedative that calmed all my worries and anxieties. Again, I convinced myself that I should understand him, that I should be his unconditional support. The changes weren't limited to work. Even in our most intimate moments, I could feel an invisible distance. The hugs were no longer as tight, the kisses became quick and dry. He often said he was tired, that the stress from work left him no room to think about anything else. I was genuinely concerned for him. I looked for the best nutritional supplements, cooked him restorative dishes, and even signed up for a massage course to help him relax. I did everything I could as a wife to share his burden, but his response to my care was an increasingly evident evasion. He started putting a password on his phone, something he had never done before. When I asked him, he just smiled and said, "There are new security rules at the company. Important data can't be seen by anyone." He often went out to the balcony to talk on the phone, whispering, and would hang up immediately if he saw me approaching. These behaviors, though very subtle, were like a pebble in my shoe. They didn't hurt, but they created constant discomfort. The peak of suspicion came about 2 months ago, on a Saturday afternoon. It was my birthday. Ethan told me he had a sudden meeting he couldn't miss but promised to be back soon for dinner. I, excited at home, put on my most beautiful dress and did my makeup carefully, expecting a romantic evening. But 7, 8, 9 o'clock came and he didn't return. His phone had no signal. I started to worry that something had happened to him. Just then, our part-time housekeeper came to clean. While cleaning the study, she accidentally knocked over a pile of papers on Ethan's desk. As she bent down to pick them up, a small pink receipt fell from between the books. She didn't pay it any mind, but I saw it. I picked it up and felt my heart stop. It was a payment receipt from a luxury jewelry store. The item was a diamond necklace valued at nearly $250,000. The payment date was just yesterday. I stood frozen with the receipt in my hand, which was trembling uncontrollably. $250,000 was not a small amount. And tomorrow was my birthday. It was clear. It was a surprise gift he had prepared for me. He had lied about going to a meeting to go pick it up. Guilt and happiness mixed inside me. I had misjudged him. I quickly put the receipt back where it was. I didn't want to spoil his surprise. I felt better and continued to wait. But 10, 11, midnight came, and he didn't return. He came back at almost 1 inch the morning, completely drunk and with no gift in his hands. He staggered to the bedroom, collapsed on the bed, and fell asleep. The next morning, upon waking, he hugged me and wouldn't stop apologizing. He said the partner the night before had forced him to drink too much, and he couldn't refuse. He promised to make it up to me with another wonderful dinner. He didn't mention the necklace at all. And on my birthday, I received nothing more than a late apology. Where had that necklace gone? That question haunted my mind for days. I searched the whole house, in his study, but found no trace of it. I considered hundreds of hypotheses. Maybe he had returned it, or given it to someone else. No, it couldn't be. Ethan wasn't like that. I tried to dismiss those terrible thoughts. I tried to trust him, but the seed of doubt, once planted, germinates in silence. It takes root in the deepest part of the heart and waits for the day to grow like a poisonous weed. I lived the next 2 months in that agony. I became more sensitive, more observant. I started noticing his clumsy lies, the contradictions in his schedules. But every time I tried to confront him, seeing his warm smile and loving gaze, I couldn't. I was afraid that if I dug deeper, I would discover a truth I couldn't bear. I chose silence, to believe in the false paradise he had painted. Until tonight, when that photo arrived, I realized how wrong I was. That necklace was probably on that woman's neck, Victoria Montgomery's, like a war trophy, like proof, mocking my stupidity. Dear listeners, isn't it true that when we're in love, we often turn a blind eye to the painful truth? If you've ever experienced the pain of betrayed trust, press the like button to send your empathy and comfort to our protagonist. Your support will be a great strength for her to become stronger on the path that awaits her. The $250,000 receipt was like a ghost that haunted my mind, giving me no moment of peace. It turned my dreams into nightmares. In my dreams, I saw Ethan putting that necklace on another woman, a woman with a blurry face I couldn't recognize. They laughed and talked happily while I watched them from the darkness far away. I would wake up with my back drenched in sweat. Beside me, Ethan was still sleeping soundly, his breathing regular. Seeing his handsome face in the lamplight, I would ask myself again, is this man really cheating on me? Or is this all because I'm too sensitive and suspicious? I spent a week with a broken heart. I became withdrawn, often lost in my thoughts. Whenever Ethan showed concern and asked me what was wrong, I felt confused, not knowing whether to be happy or wary. My change, of course, did not go unnoticed by my mother-in-law, Patricia. One Saturday afternoon, she came to the house with a pot of homemade chicken soup, saying it was for my recovery. "You've been looking very pale lately, Emily," she said, setting the pot on the table and looking at me with eyes full of concern. "Is something wrong? Tell me." Seeing the sincere concern in her eyes, I felt the defensive barrier I had built with so much effort crumble in an instant. I was too tired of wrestling with this suspicion alone. I wanted to vent to someone, to ask for advice, and I thought there was no one more suitable than my mother-in-law. She was Ethan's mother and knew him better than anyone. And as a woman, she would understand my feelings. I pulled out a chair for her to sit, and hesitantly, I began to tell her the story of the receipt. I didn't express my suspicions directly. I just told her that I had seen it by chance and that since my birthday had passed without any gift, I was a little curious. I tried to speak in the softest tone possible, as if it were a trivial question. My mother-in-law listened patiently, without interrupting. There was no surprise on her face, only deep reflection. When I finished speaking, she didn't rush to give me advice. She just sighed deeply and took my hand. "My dear, you've been through a lot since you joined our family." Her words surprised and moved me. It was the first time she acknowledged my suffering. "I know Ethan is a good boy and he loves his wife, but men, dear, sometimes they have ideas we can't understand. Maybe he didn't buy that necklace to give to you directly." She spoke in a calm and measured voice. "Think about it. His job is head of sales. He has to deal with all sorts of people. In big business relationships, people don't just give a bottle of wine or a box of cookies. Sometimes an expensive gift for a partner's wife can bring in a contract worth hundreds, thousands of times more. It's an investment, a way of socializing in the business world. If Ethan didn't tell you, it was probably so you wouldn't get the wrong idea, for fear you wouldn't understand." Each of her words was like a stream of cool water, slowly extinguishing the flames of suspicion burning in my heart. It's true. Why hadn't I thought of that possibility? I also work in marketing. I know the importance of building relationships. A gift for a partner's wife sounds a bit strange, but in the complex world of business, anything can happen. Her explanation was perfectly reasonable. It resolved all the doubts in my mind. Seeing me relax, my mother-in-law continued in an even softer voice. "I'm not defending my son, but at my age, I'm not wrong in judging people. Ethan truly loves you. The way he looks at you can't be hidden. You are a good wife, smart, beautiful, and capable. He would have to be crazy to look for another woman. Don't spoil your marriage by suspecting something silly. Men don't like it at all when their wives distrust them. Understood? Listen to me and act as if you know nothing. And you'll see. When the time is right, he will either explain it to you himself or bring you a much more valuable gift. She even told me a story of her own. She said my father-in-law also went through a period where he left early and came back late, and it wasn't clear where the money was going. She also suspected and suffered, but in the end, she chose to believe. Later, she found out her husband had been secretly saving to buy a piece of land to surprise her. Sometimes a woman's silence and trust are the most powerful weapons, my dear, she concluded. Her story was like a potent tranquilizer that completely broke down all my defenses. I felt very ashamed. I had doubted a good husband like Ethan, and almost ruined my happy marriage because of my suspicions. I had been so wrong. I looked at my mother-in-law and felt a gratitude that came from the bottom of my heart. Mom, I understand now. Thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do. She smiled kindly and patted my head like a child. Silly girl, you're my daughter-in-law. If I don't take care of you, who will I take care of? Now, stop thinking about nonsense. Try the soup I brought. I simmered it all morning. Eat this and get your strength back to be the beautiful, cheerful girl you were before. Ethan will worry if he sees you like this when he comes back. I took a spoonful of the hot soup. The sweet, smooth taste of herbs and chicken spread through my mouth. My heart warmed up again. All the doubts, all the anxiety seemed to disappear. With such a caring and understanding mother-in-law, what more could I worry about? I promised myself, from now on, I would never doubt Ethan again. I would trust him blindly and be the kindest, most understanding wife so he could focus on his career with peace of mind. Patricia's performance completely convinced me, and I myself extinguished the last ember of caution. I didn't know that this sweet comfort was actually a poison seeping slowly into my mind, blinding me so that the fall, when the truth came out, would be even more painful. My mother-in-law's comfort was like a summer downpour that washed away all the dark clouds from my heart. I felt light and at peace. I reprimanded myself for being too sensitive and endangering my marriage over a simple receipt. I decided to forget the matter and go back to being the cheerful wife who trusted her husband. I tidied the house, put out fresh flowers, and prepared a magnificent dinner with Ethan's favorite dishes. I wanted to make up for being cold to him the past few days, but perhaps once a person harbors a doubt, it's hard to fully trust again. Rationally, I was convinced by my mother-in-law's words, but deep in my subconscious, the image of the receipt and Ethan's absence on my birthday night were still like a small thorn that pricked me from time to time. That night, Ethan came home. Seeing my radiant appearance and the splendid table, he seemed very surprised. "Did something good happen today, honey?" he said in a sweet voice, hugging me from behind. I turned around with a wide smile. "Nothing. I just felt I hadn't treated you well these past few days and wanted to make it up to you." We had dinner amidst laughter and conversation, as we hadn't done in a long time. But as the night wore on and we were alone in the bedroom, the small thorn in my heart began to grow again. I was in his arms, but I couldn't fall asleep. The question about the necklace was spinning in my head. Should I ask him? My mother-in-law had told me to keep quiet, but I felt that if I didn't ask, I would never be at peace. Curiosity and the longing to know the truth finally won. I shifted slightly and lifted my head to look at him. "Ethan, can I ask you something, but promise you won't get mad?" He stroked my hair and said in a soft voice, "What's so serious? Ask away. When have I ever been mad at you?" I hesitated for a moment and then mustered my courage. "On my birthday, I happened to see a receipt for a jewelry purchase in your study." As soon as I finished speaking, I felt his body tense slightly. Although it was a very subtle reaction, in the silence of the night, I noticed it clearly. But he concealed his emotion very quickly. He let out a forced laugh, a laugh with a hint of nervousness. "Ah, you saw it, and I had hidden it so well. You really don't miss a thing," he said in a playful, reproachful tone. "So, you really bought it for me?" I asked, hope filling my heart. "And who else would it be for, silly?" He gently pinched my nose. But why didn't you give it to me that day?" He sighed and put on a sad expression. "I wanted to give you a big surprise. I had planned to take you to a special place after a romantic dinner to give you the gift. But suddenly, the meeting came up, and the client held me back and made me drink until I passed out. When I got home, you were already asleep. The next day, when I woke up, I saw you weren't in a good mood, and I felt so guilty that I thought this gift no longer made sense. I was going to find another good occasion to give it to you, but you beat me to it. You spoiled my surprise. His explanation sounded completely reasonable, and all the details fit perfectly. He even expressed disappointment and guilt on his face. I started to think I had been wrong. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I shouldn't have doubted you." "It's okay." He held me tighter. "It's my fault for not being by your side on your birthday, but you've disappointed me too. Why don't you trust me? In the last 5 years, have I ever done anything to make you doubt?" His question was like a knife twisting in the wound. It's true. In the last 5 years, he had never failed me, and I had doubted him. I was so wrong. I messed up. "Don't be mad anymore, okay?" I said in a coaxing voice, rubbing my head against his chest. "It won't happen again." "I'm not mad," he said in a cheerier voice. "But since you spoiled my surprise, you'll get a punishment now." He started to tickle me, and I couldn't stop laughing. The room was once again filled with laughter. All the doubts, all the tension seemed to dissipate. I fell completely for his performance, for his perfect explanation. The next morning, when I woke up, Ethan had already left for work. On my pillow was a dark blue velvet box. I opened the box excitedly, and inside was a sparkling diamond necklace. It was the one. Next to it, a handwritten note said, "For my beautiful and suspicious wife, I love you." I put on the necklace and smiled happily. I felt like a fool. I had almost lost my happiness because of my own imagination. I promised myself this would be the last time. From now on, I would never again let stupid doubts affect our love. I didn't know that this necklace, this surprise gift, was just a prop in his play. He hadn't prepared it to give to me, but to deal with the situation in case I found out. He had foreseen everything. He had calculated every step. My questioning, far from unmasking him, only served to further consolidate my trust and give him the opportunity to more deeply play his role as the perfect husband. I lost resoundingly in the game. I tried to turn around, and that magnificent deception left me completely disarmed. So when the truth, even crueler, was later revealed, I had no strength left to resist. I walked deeper, of my own accord, into the trap he had so carefully laid, a sweet but deadly trap. After the failed interrogation and Ethan's surprise gift, I completely discarded all my doubts. Our life returned to its sweet rhythm, even with more passion than before. Ethan seemed to feel guilty for having missed my birthday. He spent more time with me. He often took me out to dinner or to the movies. He voluntarily reduced his social engagements and came home earlier. I, immersed in happiness, believed that this small storm had made our love even stronger. I bragged to Chloe about my attentive husband and the brilliant diamond necklace I wore around my neck. She just smiled, a somewhat forced smile, but at that moment I didn't notice. "If you're happy, that's what matters." It was the only thing she said. I was too blinded by love to notice anything strange in my friend's attitude. I went back to building a perfect wall around my marriage, not allowing any truth to enter. But a needle in a haystack always comes out. The truth, no matter how much it is hidden, always finds a way to come to light. And usually, at the moment we least expect it. About a month later, my company organized a major event for the launch of a new product. As the VP of marketing, I was in charge. The event was a huge success, attracting the attention of numerous media outlets and partners. Afterwards, we held a party at a luxury hotel. Everyone was toasting cheerfully. While chatting with some colleagues, I happened to overhear the conversation of a new intern. The intern was excitedly bragging to people about a fashion influencer she greatly admired. "Do you guys know Victoria Montgomery? She's gorgeous, super successful, and has amazing style." The name Victoria Montgomery made me pause. It sounded familiar. "Isn't she the daughter-in-law of the Davenport Corporation?" Someone else asked. "Yes, that's her," the intern exclaimed. "She got married last year. Her husband is a handsome, rich heir. A dream life, right? I follow her on Instagram every day. She's always posting pictures of luxury trips and only wears high-end brands. Out of curiosity, I took out my phone and searched for Victoria Montgomery on Instagram. I found her personal profile with hundreds of thousands of followers. The profile picture was the same one I had seen on the magazine cover, a beautiful and haughty woman. I glanced at her posts. Just as the intern said, Victoria's life was full of glamour. Trips to Europe, limited edition handbags, luxury parties. I was just browsing without any other intention. But then my gaze stopped on a photo posted about 2 months ago. It was a selfie. Victoria was sitting in a luxury restaurant with the city lights shining in the background. She was wearing an attractive off-the-shoulder dress, and her hair was styled in voluminous waves. Her makeup was perfect, and she was smiling radiantly. But it wasn't her beauty that left me frozen. It was the sparkling diamond necklace she wore around her neck. I felt as if an invisible hand was squeezing my heart. I zoomed in on the photo and stared intently at the necklace's pendant. There was no doubt. Every one of the small, precisely set diamonds, the delicate lines, it was exactly the same necklace Ethan had given me. The same one I was wearing at that moment. I unconsciously touched the necklace hanging from my neck. A chill ran down my spine. How was this possible? Why did she have a necklace identical to mine? With trembling hands, I clicked on the photo's publication date. October 25th, my birthday. The day Ethan told me he had a sudden meeting. The day I found the receipt. I felt dizzy. All the loose pieces suddenly fit together to form a complete picture, a cruel and relentless picture. On the night of my birthday, Ethan didn't go to any meeting. He was at this luxury restaurant with Victoria. The necklace he bought wasn't for me. It was originally for her. His explanation, his repentant act, it was all a lie concocted after he realized I had found the receipt. This necklace I'm wearing now is probably an identical replica he bought in a hurry to shut me up and cover everything up. I felt a tightness in my chest and my throat went dry. I quickly got up and ran to the restroom. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to calm down, but the image of the necklace on Victoria's neck wouldn't stop tormenting me. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman I saw looked truly pathetic, a pale face, eyes wide with terror. She was also wearing a diamond necklace, but it was no longer a symbol of love. It was like a shackle, proof of her own stupidity. I burst out laughing, a bitter, unhinged laugh. In the end, I was just a substitute, a replacement. He had bought my silence with a fake gift so he could continue his affair. I had been deceived. I had been completely deceived. I returned to the party, trying to act as if nothing had happened, but my mind was no longer there. I couldn't stop thinking about Victoria and Ethan and their relationship. Why Victoria? A woman who had everything, fame, money, a millionaire husband. Why did she have to be the other woman? And Ethan, what did he gain from this relationship? Daring to have an affair with the daughter-in-law of someone as powerful as Catherine Davenport, wasn't he afraid of the consequences? 1,000 questions arose in my head, and I knew that this time I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't keep deceiving myself. I had to find out the truth. I had to find out, at any cost, what was happening behind my back. The sweet play was about to end, and this time, I wouldn't be just a naive spectator. I would be the one to rip open the fake velvet curtain myself. Has a coincidence so suspicious ever appeared in your life that it made your hair stand on end? Share this story with your most trusted friend and see for yourselves that sometimes a woman's intuition is never wrong. The euphoria from the alcohol and professional success quickly dissipated, leaving only the bitter taste of cruel truth. I returned home like a sleepwalker. This luxurious apartment, once cozy and warm, now seemed like a huge stage decorated with falsehoods. Ethan hadn't returned yet, and I had no desire to wait for him. I went straight to the bedroom, took the necklace off my neck, and threw it into a corner of the jewelry box. I never wanted to see it again. Every time I saw it, I felt a sense of humiliation. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling with my eyes open. Sleep had completely abandoned me. In my head, only images of Ethan and Victoria, the identical necklaces, and the face of my mother-in-law, Patricia, with her kind smile and sweet words of comfort, swirled around. I'm not wrong in judging people. Ethan truly loves you. Her words echoed in my ears. Did he really love me? Would a man who truly loves his wife buy the same gift for another woman? Would a man who truly loves his wife lie so skillfully? Or was my mother-in-law also lying? A terrible thought crossed my mind. No, it couldn't be. Although she was Ethan's mother, she had always treated me well and taken my side. She had no reason to deceive me. Perhaps she didn't know anything either and, like me, was being deceived by Ethan. I tried to cling to that thought like a castaway to a piece of rotten wood. I wanted to believe I wasn't completely alone in this fight. I didn't want to believe that all the people I loved and trusted had turned their backs on me. But the truth is often crueler than we can imagine, and it came 2 days after that fateful night, on a Monday afternoon. That day, I took the afternoon off, using the excuse that I wasn't feeling well. I wanted to be alone in the tranquility of my home to sort out my confused thoughts. Around 3 inches the afternoon, while I was trying to read a book on the balcony without being able to concentrate, the doorbell rang. I looked at the intercom and saw it was my mother-in-law. She had come unannounced. A whirlwind of emotions seized me. On one hand, I wanted to see her, to vent and ask for advice, but on the other, I was afraid to face her, afraid that if I told her the truth about the second necklace, she wouldn't believe me, or worse, that she would try to protect her son again. I took a deep breath and, feigning normalcy, opened the door. "Mom, what are you doing here without calling? I was coming from the doctor's and thought of you, so I stopped by," she said, smiling, with a bag of oranges in her hand. "Ethan told me you weren't feeling well. Are you sick? Shouldn't you go to the doctor?" Her concern comforted me a little. Maybe I was being too paranoid. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a little tired from work." Come in, come in." I let her in and prepared her a cup of hot tea. We sat in the living room chatting. She asked about my work, about my parents' health. She was still the same attentive and detailed mother-in-law as always. I was about to bring up the topic of Victoria, but I held back. I didn't want to worry her or shatter the image of the perfect son she had in her eyes. Just then, Patricia's phone rang. She looked at the screen and smiled at me. "It must be Ethan. I'm sure he's calling to see how you are." She answered the phone with a voice full of love. "Hello, son. It's Mom." After exchanging a few words, she suddenly stood up and went to the balcony. I assumed it was so as not to disturb me. "I'm going to talk somewhere quieter," she said. The glass door to the balcony wasn't closed properly, but slightly ajar. I was sitting in the living room, but I could vaguely hear her conversation. At first, I had no intention of listening, but a few of her words caught my attention. "I think she's suspicious again lately. Yes, she's been in a bad mood for a few days. Don't worry, Mom can handle this. You just focus on your work. Yes, be careful with that, Victoria. Her family isn't just anyone, so be careful you don't get caught." "Yes, understood. I'll try to talk to her. Emily trusts me blindly. She believes anything I tell her. I have to go. I'm at her house. If I talk too long, she'll get suspicious." Each of her words was like a hammer blow to my head. My ears were ringing, and I felt my blood run cold. I sat motionless in the chair, unable to believe what I had just heard. Emily trusts me blindly. She believes anything I tell her. So, that was it. That was it. Her concern, her comfort, it was all an act to calm me down and cover up her son's sins. Not only did she know about Ethan's affair, but she was his accomplice, his helper in the cover-up. This shock was 1,000 times greater and more painful than when I discovered Ethan had another woman. The person I respected as my own mother, whom I trusted with all my heart, was the one stabbing me in the back. I felt sick. Love, family, affection, everything I believed in was a farce. I was living in a den of wolves, amidst a family of professional scammers. Together, they had woven a perfect web, and I was the stupid prey who had walked right into it. My mother-in-law finished the call and came back in with a kind smile. "Ethan is very worried about you. He told me to stay for dinner and keep you company." She continued speaking in a sweet voice, as if nothing had happened. I lifted my head and looked at her. In my eyes, there was no longer respect or love, only a terrifying coldness. Without a word, I stood up silently and walked to the door. "Where are you going, Emily?" she asked, a little surprised. "I'm going out for a moment," I replied in a dry voice. I couldn't stay in this house for another second. I couldn't breathe the same air as this hypocritical woman. I had to leave. I had to leave to recover and prepare for war. A war I couldn't afford to lose. I ran out of the apartment like a fugitive. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to escape from there, from that suffocating space filled with lies and betrayal. I drove aimlessly through the busy streets of New York. The tears started to flow again, but this time, they were not tears of pain, but of anger and resentment. They had deceived me. They had both deceived me, mother and son. They had treated me like a fool, like a puppet they could manipulate at will. Their performance was so perfect, so elaborate. They had taken advantage of my love and trust to turn me into a tool for their dirty purposes. I thought I was strong and intelligent, but against their cunning, I was nothing more than a naive child. I parked at a cafe by the roadside and sat alone at a secluded table. I had to calm down. I had to think. Crying and suffering now would solve nothing. I had cried enough. Now it was time to act. My mistake had been to remain silent, to try to believe blindly. My mistake had been to think I could face this alone and discover the truth. Now I realized I couldn't be alone in this war. I wasn't just facing an unfaithful husband, but a whole family of scammers. They were in cahoots, they had a plan, and they wouldn't hesitate to use any means to protect their interests. I needed allies. I needed thorough preparation. I had to go from being the prey to being the hunter. The first person that came to my mind was my best friend, Chloe. She was the one who sent me that fateful photo. Maybe she already knew something before, but hadn't dared to tell me directly. I dialed Chloe's number. On the other end, she answered almost instantly, as if she had been waiting for this call for a long time. "Emily, are you okay?" Her voice was full of concern. "No, Chloe, I'm not okay at all. Can you come? I need you." Half an hour later, Chloe arrived. Seeing my pitiful state, she hugged me tightly without a word. Her hug was incredibly warm, like a firm support when I was about to collapse. I told her everything, from the necklace, to my mother-in-law's comfort, to the call I had just overheard. Chloe listened patiently, and in her eyes there was anger and resentment. "I suspected it for a long time, Emily," Chloe said when I finished telling her everything. "Your husband, Ethan, is not as simple as you think. I've seen him several times with that Victoria in very discreet places. I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, that I would break up your family. I had hired a detective to follow him for a week. The photo from the other day is just a small part." Chloe opened her phone and showed me other photos. Ethan and Victoria entering a hotel hand in hand, kissing and hugging in a car. Each photo was like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. "And your mother-in-law too," Chloe continued. "She also seemed a bit strange to me, too good, too attentive to be a real mother-in-law." I suspected she was acting. And now it's all clear. They are accomplices. "So what do I do now?" I asked with a helpless voice. "Divorce him." "Of course, you have to divorce him," Chloe said firmly. "But not just any divorce. You've sacrificed for 5 years. You can't leave with empty hands. They have to pay for it, for the lies, for the betrayal, and for your tears. But how? I have no more proof than these few photos." "Of course you do," Chloe scoffed. "Have you forgotten who you are? You're a VP of marketing. You have a brain, you have contacts, and most importantly, you have me by your side." Chloe squeezed my hand tightly, giving me encouragement. "Listen to me carefully, Emily. From now on, you have to turn pain into reason. You have to become colder and more calculating than them. They can't know that you've discovered everything. You have to continue playing the role of the naive and hurt wife. The more pathetic you seem, the better." "Why?" I didn't understand. "So they let their guard down," Chloe explained. "Meanwhile, we will secretly gather evidence of Ethan's infidelity, evidence of your mother-in-law's complicity, and maybe even financial evidence. I don't think someone like Ethan is completely clean in his work. We're going to uncover everything. When we have enough evidence in hand, we'll deliver a mortal blow without giving them time to react." Chloe's plan sounded bold but very reasonable. It's true. I couldn't keep acting like a fool. I needed a plan, a clear strategy. In this war, I didn't just want a divorce. I wanted justice. "But I need a good lawyer," I said. "Don't worry," Chloe smiled. "I have a cousin, Mr. Ramsey, who specializes in complicated divorce cases. He's very good and very discreet. I'll set up an appointment for you tomorrow." "What you need to do now," Chloe said, looking me straight in the eyes, "is to dry your tears, go home, and start the performance of your life. You have to act very well, Emily. Act until the velvet curtain of this play comes down on your terms." Chloe's words were like a ray of light that illuminated the dark path ahead of me. I no longer felt helpless or alone. I had my friend by my side and a clear plan. The pain still burned faintly in my chest, but it no longer broke me. It had become a flame of anger and determination. I would act. I would perfectly play the role of the cheated wife until the end, and I would wait for the day when I could write the ending of this tragic play myself. Returning home, I was a different person. I still had a sad expression. My eyes were still red. But deep down, the weak and love-vulnerable Emily was dead. In her place, a cold, calculating, and determined Emily was born. When I returned, my mother-in-law rushed to ask me how I was, perfectly playing her role as the worried mother. "Emily, where have you been? You didn't answer your phone. I was so worried. Is something wrong?" "You look terrible." I rested my head on her shoulder and pretended to sob. "Mom, I don't know what to do. I'm so miserable." I began my performance. I cried to her about the stress from work, about the loneliness I felt when Ethan went on business trips so often. I tried my best to appear weak, vulnerable, and in need of support. My mother-in-law, as expected, completely bought my act. She hugged me, comforted me, and reassured me. There. Don't cry anymore, child. I'm here. Everything will be okay. I'll talk to Ethan to make him spend more time with you." That night, when Ethan returned, Patricia called him into a separate room and they talked for a long time. I don't know what they talked about, but afterward, Ethan's attitude completely changed. He became more affectionate, more attentive. He canceled all his dinner appointments and stayed home with me. He even suggested, "What do you say we go on a trip this weekend, honey? It's been a long time since we've spent time alone." Everything was going according to Chloe's and my plan. The more attention and affection they showed me, the more they let their guard down. They thought I was still the docile little lamb who could be swayed by sweet words. They didn't know that this lamb was shedding its skin and quietly sharpening its horns. While they were indulging in their performance, Chloe and I began to act. The next day, I met with Mr. Ramsey. He was a middle-aged gentleman with a piercing gaze. After listening to my entire story, he didn't offer any words of comfort. He just asked me one thing. "What do you want to achieve with this divorce?" "Justice," I replied firmly. "I want him to leave with nothing, and for everyone to know the true face of him and his mother." "Understood," Mr. Ramsey nodded. "Then we need to gather evidence, a lot of evidence. Not just evidence of infidelity, but also financial evidence. Do you suspect anything in your husband's business dealings?" I told him about Ethan's strange behaviors, his secret phone calls, his suspicious knowledge of financial matters. Mr. Ramsey nodded. "It's very likely he has not only deceived you emotionally, but also with your money. Let's start here." Following Mr. Ramsey's instructions, I began my own investigation. I took advantage of the trust Ethan was trying to rebuild to subtly ask him about his work. I feigned interest in his projects and asked him to explain the contracts and partners. When he wasn't around, I secretly copied all the important documents from his computer. The deeper I dug, the more suspicious things I found. Contracts with ambiguous clauses, partners about whom there was hardly any information online. There seemed to be an illegal flow of funds. At the same time, Chloe was not resting. She combined her contacts with the information obtained from the detective to investigate Victoria, and what she discovered truly stunned us. The daughter-in-law of the Davenport Corporation, Victoria Montgomery, was actually a piece in a much larger game. Her marriage to the heir was just a marriage of convenience for business reasons. Her husband was a notorious playboy who had no interest in his wife. Victoria's affair with Ethan was not just for romantic reasons. It had another purpose. Ethan had promised to help her divert part of her in-laws' fortune through a phantom investment project. They were a pair of scammers using each other for profit, and I and Victoria's husband were just victims, a shield to cover up their conspiracy. This truth enraged me, but at the same time, it left me bewildered. I wasn't the only victim in this play. I decided to play a bolder card. I had to make Ethan and Victoria expose themselves. I told Ethan that the following week I had to go on a business trip to London for a week. It was the perfect opportunity that I had created myself. I was sure that as soon as I left, he wouldn't waste the opportunity to be with his lover. "Are you going alone?" Ethan asked, hiding the joy in his eyes. "No, I'm going with some colleagues." "Take good care of the house while I'm away," I smiled, perfectly playing the role of the attentive wife. "Don't worry. Have a good trip. I'll take good care of the house, he hugged me. A hug full of hypocrisy. The day I left for London, I didn't go to the airport. I went to a hotel near our home and booked a room with a good view. Chloe and the detective team were ready. As expected, just a few hours after my departure, Ethan's car pulled up to the main entrance of the Grand Elysian Hotel. He and Victoria entered hand in hand once again, but this time they didn't know that their every move was being meticulously recorded by dozens of hidden lenses. The net was cast, and the prey had walked right into it. Sitting in the hotel room, watching the real-time footage transmitted to my computer, I felt strangely calm. My play was about to end, and this time, I was not only an actress, but also the director, the person who would decide the fate of all the characters in this play. If you are eagerly awaiting the protagonist's thrilling comeback, subscribe to the channel right now. The journey to reclaim justice has just begun, and the most intense parts are yet to come. Don't miss a single moment. The hotel room I was staying in instantly became a small command center. The large laptop screen continuously streamed images from the hidden cameras with crystal-clear sharpness. I could see Ethan and Victoria sitting in the hotel's luxurious restaurant, laughing and chatting happily as they toasted with wine. I could see Ethan gallantly pulling out Victoria's chair, looking at her with an expression full of affection. If this had been the me from a month ago, these scenes would have probably killed me with pain, but now they only deepened my contempt. Beside me, Chloe was intently watching another screen displaying data from the tracking device the detective had placed in Ethan's car. She was constantly taking notes of places and times. "They didn't just go to the hotel, Emily," Chloe said without taking her eyes off the screen. Before this, Ethan picked up Victoria and they went to a law firm in Midtown. They were there for over an hour. A law firm. What were they doing there? A bad feeling crept over me. "I've sent someone to investigate," Chloe continued. "It's a firm specializing in corporate law and mergers and acquisitions. I don't think they were just on a date. They're definitely planning some big deal." A deal? I remembered what Chloe had researched about Victoria. Ethan had promised to help her embezzle her in-laws' fortune. Could it be that my business trip was the opportunity to push their plan forward? Do they think that because I'm in London, I won't find out anything? They're carrying out their conspiracy openly. Their audacity enraged me, but at the same time, I felt lucky. The more openly they moved, the more traces they would leave. "Keep watching," I told Chloe in a cold voice. "Record everything, don't miss a thing." That night, Ethan and Victoria stayed at the hotel. Their intimate moments in the elevator, in the hallway, everything was recorded. Chloe and I stayed up all night, taking turns monitoring and backing up the data. Seeing the man who was once my husband making love to another woman, my heart no longer ached. There was only an emptiness, a numbness. He had become a complete stranger. The next morning, they left the hotel looking very cheerful and satisfied. Ethan dropped Victoria off at her luxurious apartment and then drove to his office. It seemed like everything was over. "Isn't this enough?" Chloe asked me. She looked tired. "Not yet," I shook my head. "The proof of infidelity is just one part. I want more. I want to know what financial conspiracy they're plotting. That will be the final blow." I knew the ambiguous contracts I had copied weren't enough to convict Ethan. I needed clearer evidence, irrefutable proof, and I decided to create that proof myself. I told Chloe my plan. Upon hearing it, her eyes widened in astonishment. "Emily, are you crazy? It's too risky. What if you get caught?" "There's no other way, Chloe," I said firmly. "This is the only chance. I have to do it." My plan was very simple, but at the same time, extremely dangerous. That night, I would sneak into Ethan's office at the company and install a miniature recording device. I knew the access code to the building. I knew the locations of the security cameras. I had been to his office hundreds of times. I knew every corner. That night, I dressed in all black, with a cap and a mask. I looked like a thief. Chloe kept watch from the car, staying in contact with me through a miniature earpiece. As I entered the empty office building, my heart was pounding. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. I disabled the hallway cameras and slipped into Ethan's office. The office was dark, with only the light from the buildings opposite filtering through. The scent of his cologne still lingered faintly in the air. A fragrance I once loved, but now only made me nauseous. I quickly went to his desk and placed the recording device in a discreet spot under the table. Just as I was about to leave, I happened to see a file on the desk. He had probably forgotten to put it away in the filing cabinet. Out of curiosity, I turned on my phone's flashlight and shone it on the file. The words on the cover made me freeze. Davenport Corporation Real Estate Investment Project, Proposal for Share Transfer. Davenport Corporation, Victoria's in-laws company. With trembling hands, I opened the file. Inside was an elaborate and complex plan to establish a subsidiary company and transfer a significant portion of the shares from Victoria's husband's company to a new company owned by Ethan and Victoria through complex sale and purchase transactions. This was it. This was their conspiracy. They were preparing to divert assets from the Davenport Corporation, and seeing the plan's timeline, everything was being accelerated to coincide with my business trip. I quickly photographed every important page of the document with my phone. Just then, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. My heart was about to burst. Chloe also shouted through the earpiece, "Someone's coming, hide quickly!" I quickly turned off the flashlight and hid behind a large filing cabinet. The office door opened, and the light from the hallway flooded the room. I saw a man's shadow. It was Ethan. Why was he back at the office at this hour? I held my breath, motionless. He came in and turned on the light. He seemed to be looking for something. He went straight to the desk and picked up the file I had just been looking at. I screamed inwardly, "It's over. He'll notice the file has been moved." But no, he just glanced at it and put it in his briefcase. He had probably come back for it. He turned off the light and left the office. I waited for his footsteps to fade away before I could breathe again. It was a close call. I left the building, trembling, and returned to the car where Chloe was waiting. She hugged me tightly. "You almost gave me a heart attack." "I got something more important than the recorder, Chloe," I said, my voice still shaky. I showed her the photos I had just taken. Chloe saw the plan, and her face turned pale. "My God, these people are playing for keeps. This isn't just about infidelity anymore. It's organized fraud and embezzlement. With this evidence, Ethan won't just get a divorce with empty hands, he'll rot in jail." I looked at my phone's screen, at their elaborate and cruel plan. I didn't know that such a big fish would fall into my net. Now, I not only had the evidence to end my marriage, but also a bomb that could completely destroy the careers and futures of Ethan and Victoria. I smiled, a cold smile. On this chessboard, my victory was assured. After a week of my business trip to London, I returned. Ethan came to pick me up at the airport with a bouquet of my favorite flowers, white lilies. He hugged me tightly, perfectly playing the role of a husband who missed his wife. "You're finally back. I missed you." Seeing his smile and affectionate gaze, I only felt infinite disgust. I also responded with the smile I had practiced countless times in front of the mirror. "I missed you too." Our play continued, but this time, I knew the end was near. I pretended to be tired from the trip and said I needed a few days to rest. During that time, Mr. Ramsey and I finalized all the last preparations. All the evidence I had collected, the photos of the affair, the audio files, and the Davenport Corporation embezzlement plan, was organized into a perfect dossier. Mr. Ramsey said, "With this evidence, we will not only win the divorce case, but we can also file a criminal complaint. He will have no escape." I knew it was time to bring down the curtain, but I didn't want a simple ending. I wanted a memorable play with all the main actors present. And I chose the stage for my final act, the very same night it all began, the night of our 5th wedding anniversary. I returned to the present, sitting at the Summit restaurant. It has been 10 minutes since I sent the message to Mrs. Davenport, the longest 10 minutes of my life. I have played my part. Now, I am just a spectator waiting to see how the play I directed unfolds. I signaled the waiter for the bill. I no longer felt like sitting there. I wanted to go somewhere closer, a place from which I could witness the impending storm. I drove to a small cafe across from the Grand Elysian Hotel. I chose a seat on the second-floor balcony. From here, I could see the entire hotel lobby. I ordered a hot ginger tea, trying to warm my icy hands. My heart was pounding. I felt a mix of nervousness and a little fear. What if Mrs. Davenport didn't come? What if my plan failed? But then I saw it. A familiar black Maybach slowly pulled up to the hotel entrance. The car door opened, and a woman in a dark red velvet suit who radiated power and distinction stepped out. It was Mrs. Davenport. She didn't come alone. Behind her followed two men in black suits, her bodyguards, and another car arrived. From that car stepped out a middle-aged man with a kind face and a gentle-looking woman. I recognized them. They were the Montgomerys, Victoria's parents. And with them was none other than Victoria's husband, Mrs. Davenport's only son, Marcus. He looked bewildered and confused. Mrs. Davenport hadn't come alone. She had called her in-laws. She wanted to catch them red-handed. She wanted everyone to witness this humiliation, a style very typical of the matriarch of Wall Street. I took a sip of my tea and smiled slightly. The play had become more exciting than I had imagined. I saw Mrs. Davenport say something to a lobby employee, and her group headed straight for the elevators. They had gotten the room number, 2109. My heart began to beat faster. This is it. The bomb is about to go off. I couldn't just sit there. I paid quickly, went downstairs, and found a discreet spot in the hotel lobby from where I could hear and see everything. I wanted to witness their downfall with my own eyes. I hid behind a large pillar and held my breath, waiting. About 5 minutes later, I heard a commotion coming from the elevators. Mrs. Davenport's group came out, and they all had murderous expressions. They headed straight to the end of the hallway where room 2109 was. Mrs. Davenport didn't knock. She signaled one of her bodyguards. He opened the lock with a master key. The room door burst open, and Victoria's sharp scream was heard, followed by Mrs. Davenport's furious shout. "Shameless hussy! How dare you tarnish our family's name?" A sharp sound was heard. Slap. Probably a slap, and then the sound of furniture breaking. Victoria's sobs and pleas, her husband's roar. "Ethan, you bastard! How dare you seduce my wife?" Everything turned into chaos. Guests from the adjoining rooms started to peek out their doors. Some hotel security guards rushed over, but seeing Mrs. Davenport's presence, no one dared to intervene. I watched silently from a distance. I didn't feel any satisfaction, just a strange emptiness. This was the end they deserved, but seeing the chaos, I suddenly felt tired. I turned to leave, but then I heard Ethan's voice, a voice full of fear and cowardice. "It's not my fault. It was her. She seduced me. I'm just a victim." Those words ignited the last spark within me. A victim. He dares to call himself a victim? No, I can't leave. This play cannot end without my character making an appearance. I took a deep breath. I came out of my hiding place and walked directly towards room 2109, where the gates of hell were opening. I walked down the hotel's red-carpeted hallway. Each step was firm and determined. The sound of my heels against the floor echoed, tock, tock, as if fate's hammer was striking the doors of their hell. All eyes were on room 2109, from which shouts, insults, and cries continued to pour out. No one noticed my arrival. I passed through the curious crowd, past the bewildered security guards, and walked calmly. I stopped at the very threshold, where the entire tragedy was unfolding in its rawest form. The scene inside was far more chaotic than I had imagined. Victoria, the haughty woman I had seen on Instagram, now had disheveled hair. Her expensive silk dress was wrinkled, and on one of her cheeks was a sharp red mark of 5 fingers. She was kneeling at Mrs. Davenport's feet, crying and begging. "Mother, mother, forgive me. I was wrong. I know I was wrong." Mrs. Davenport stood like a statue of ice, with no emotion on her face, but her eyes burned with the flames of fury. Victoria's parents were in a corner, their faces as pale as wax, not daring to lift their heads in shame. Victoria's husband, Marcus, had Ethan by the collar and was pushing him against the wall. His face was red with anger. "You bastard! I thought of you as a brother, and you dare to stab me in the back." My perfect husband, Ethan, now looked truly pathetic. His elegant suit was wrinkled, his tie askew, and his face was white with terror. He didn't dare to resist, only stammered, "Marcus, it's a misunderstanding. She really seduced me. I'm a victim." His cowardly words echoed again, clear and shameless. It was then that I opened my mouth. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough to silence all the chaotic sounds in the room. "A victim? Ethan? Are you really sure you're a victim?" Everyone in the room turned to look at me in unison. My sudden appearance surprised them all. Ethan saw me, and his eyes widened. The terror in them was much greater than when Marcus had him by the collar. He would never have imagined I would be here. Emily, what are you doing here?" he stammered. "Mrs. Davenport also saw me, and her sharp gaze narrowed to examine me. She was probably wondering who I was and why I had appeared at this moment. "It doesn't matter who I am," I said. My gaze went directly to Mrs. Davenport and then back to Ethan. "What's important is that I don't think Ethan is a victim, because a victim wouldn't have time to devise a meticulous plan to divert the assets of two families." My words were like a second bomb that exploded in the middle of the room. "What are you talking about?" Marcus asked, letting go of Ethan and turning to me. "A plan to divert assets?" "Yes, that's right," I replied calmly. I entered the room and approached a small table where Ethan's briefcase was haphazardly thrown. I opened the briefcase and took out a file, the same file I had photographed in his office. I placed it on the table for everyone to see. "This is a detailed plan to establish a shell company and, through complex transactions, divert the assets of the Davenport Corporation. The ultimate goal was to transfer a considerable amount of assets to a new company in the names of Ethan and the present Victoria." Marcus snatched the file and flipped through it page by page. The more he read, the darker his face became. Victoria's parents also rushed to look. They were not fools. Just by seeing that detailed plan, they understood everything instantly. "My God, this was their real purpose," Victoria's mother exclaimed in horror. She turned to look at her daughter. In her eyes, there was no longer anger, but deep disappointment. Ethan and Victoria were frozen. They would never have imagined that their most secret plan would be revealed so abruptly. Ethan looked at me. In his eyes, there was no longer terror, but hatred. "It was you. This was all you're doing," he shouted. "Yes, it was me," I said, looking him straight in the eyes without the slightest fear. "If I hadn't, how else would everyone see your true face? The face of a scammer, of a snake ready to bite those who have taken you in addition to betraying your wife and your friend." I turned to Mrs. Davenport. She had been observing silently until now, but I knew a storm was raging inside her. "Ma'am, allow me to introduce myself. I am Emily, Ethan's legal wife. I was the one who sent you the message tonight. I had no intention of meddling in your family's affairs. I just wanted you to know that the relationship between your daughter-in-law and my husband is not a simple case of adultery. They are partners in crime." The whole truth had come to light. The play was completely over. Ethan and Victoria could no longer deny it. He tried to play the victim, but in the end, it was I who unmasked his true nature as a perpetrator. The gates of hell had opened, and he had walked in of his own accord. Seeing Ethan's stunned and desperate face, I felt not the slightest compassion. This was the end he deserved. But I knew the story wasn't over yet. Behind this betrayal was another person, a person who had aided and abetted all these sins, and I was not going to let that person get away with it. If you think this revelation was shocking enough, you are mistaken. The most terrible truths are yet to come to light. Leave your predictions in the comments about who the last mysterious character might be, and don't forget to watch the next chapter. The luxurious hotel room now looked like a crime scene. Everyone was speechless at the facts I had just revealed. The asset embezzlement plan lay on the table like a solemn accusation that admitted no excuses. Ethan and Victoria stood like convicts awaiting sentencing. Their faces were as pale as wax, and their former confidence and arrogance had vanished, leaving only fear and despair. Marcus, after reading the documents, could no longer maintain his composure. He didn't hit Ethan again, but turned to his wife. In his eyes, there was no longer anger, but deep disgust and contempt. "Victoria, I never thought you were this kind of person. You not only betrayed me, but you tried to ruin my entire family. You don't deserve to be my wife or the daughter-in-law of my family," he said in an icy voice. Victoria's parents were so ashamed they couldn't look at anyone. They just bowed their heads and quietly apologized to Mrs. Davenport and her family. But Mrs. Davenport didn't even glance at them. Her iron gaze was now fixed on one person. Me. She approached me. Her piercing gaze seemed to go through my soul. "Miss, you are very intelligent and brave," she said in a deep, restrained voice. "Thank you for revealing the truth. My family is in your debt." I just nodded slightly. I hadn't done this for them to owe me anything. I had done it for myself. "But I have a question," Mrs. Davenport continued. "Why did you act now? With this evidence, you could have sunk your husband a long time ago." Her question was the one everyone in the room wanted to know. I took a deep breath, turned to look at Ethan, and then directed my gaze towards another woman trembling hidden by the door. It was my mother-in-law, Patricia. She had arrived. I guess Ethan had called her for help. Because, I began to say, my voice echoing clearly in the silent room, I didn't just have to face him. I also had to face the person who covered up and consented to all these sins. I raised my hand and pointed directly at my mother-in-law. It's her. My mother-in-law, Patricia. All eyes turned again to Patricia. She was stunned, her face turned pale, and she stammered, Emily, what are you saying? I don't know anything. You don't know anything? I scoffed. A laugh full of bitterness. You don't know anything. Or are you the director of this play? Always pretending to be the attentive and understanding mother-in-law, always taking the daughter-in-law's side against her son, advising me to trust my husband, that men have complicated business relationships. Isn't that right? I approached her, my voice getting sharper. You knew about Ethan and Victoria's relationship for a long time, didn't you? Not only did you know, but you helped him hide it, make up excuses. You helped calm me down with sweet words. You turned me into a fool, a puppet in your and your son's hands. Is that so? Patricia backed away with a look of terror in her eyes. No, it's not like that. I just wanted to protect the family's happiness. Protect the family's happiness, I shouted. For the first time, I couldn't contain my emotions. A happiness built on lies and betrayal? You call that happiness? You colluded with your son to deceive me. You saw me suffer and agonize in my doubts with complete indifference. You knew everything. Do you really have the right to be a mother? Patricia couldn't answer. She just shook her head and started to cry. Ethan, seeing his mother cornered, rushed to intervene. Emily, that's enough. Mom is not to blame. It's all my fault. If you have something to say it to me. You? I looked at him with contempt. You have nothing more to say, do you? A coward who until the last moment tries to hide behind his mother. You are a perfect pair, mother and son. One cunning, the other weak. Since you created this play together, now face the ending together. I turned to Mrs. Davenport. She had been silently observing our family drama. Ma'am, do you understand now why I had to go this far? I had no other choice. If I hadn't saved myself, I probably would have lived the rest of my life in their lies. Mrs. Davenport nodded. Her eyes were full of contempt for Patricia. Understood. I didn't know such hypocritical and evil people existed in the world. She ordered her bodyguard to call the police. I'm going to report these two for fraud and embezzlement. I will not stand by. Upon hearing the word police, mother and son completely broke down. Patricia collapsed to the floor, crying inconsolably. Ethan knelt and crawled towards me, grabbing my skirt. Emily, please, please forgive me. Forgive my mother and me. Just this once. I'll do whatever you want. I'll divorce you. I'll give you half of my assets, but please don't call the police, please. I looked at the man kneeling at my feet, the man I once loved with all my heart. I felt no emotion in my heart. I coolly pushed his hand away. It's too late, Ethan. The price of betrayal is never cheap. I walked out without looking back. Behind me, the cries, pleas, and the shouts of the police mingled, creating a chaotic music that marked the end of a long play full of lies. I left the hotel and took a deep breath of the fresh New York night air. I had done it. I had ended the play of my life with my own hands. It was all over, and a new life awaited me. The storm passed, leaving only ashes. The scandal at the Grand Elysian Hotel was a bomb that exploded across all media and social networks. The photos of Ethan and Victoria caught red-handed. My revelation, the arrival of the police, everything was recorded by curious guests and spread in an instant. The reputations of two families, my former in-laws and Victoria's, completely collapsed. They went from being envied families to the laughingstock of the world. The consequences came faster than I had imagined. Living up to her nickname, the matriarch of Wall Street, Mrs. Davenport acted decisively and mercilessly. The next day, she filed for divorce on behalf of her son. Victoria was kicked out of her in-laws' house with only the clothes on her back. Her parents also paid a high price for their daughter's complicity. The Davenport Corporation broke all business contracts with their company, and they found themselves on the brink of bankruptcy. Victoria, The young woman who lived in luxury, the fashion influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers, lost everything in an instant. Career, family, reputation, it all vanished like smoke. And the end for my family, or rather, my former in-laws, was not much different. With the irrefutable evidence I provided and Victoria's confession, who confessed everything to get a reduced sentence, Ethan and his mother were charged by the police with fraud and embezzlement. They tried every means to get off, but under the pressure of public opinion and Mrs. Davenport's firmness, no one helped them. The apartment we lived in, the bank accounts, all assets in Ethan's name were frozen for the investigation. Patricia, who had always pretended to be kind and distinguished, now faced justice in the twilight of her life, and Ethan's future was completely ruined. I felt no satisfaction at their downfall, only tiredness and emptiness. The war was over. I was the victor. But why did this victory have such a bitter taste? I had paid for this victory with 5 years of my youth, my love, and my trust. I left the apartment we lived in and moved back to my parents' house. My parents didn't blame me for anything. They just quietly supported me, cooked my favorite food, and took care of me. The warmth of family helped me heal my wounds. The divorce from Ethan was processed quickly. With the clear evidence of infidelity and fraud, the court completely sided with me. I was able to keep all my personal assets and received a considerable compensation for emotional damages. On the day of the trial, I met Ethan again. He seemed to have aged 10 years. His hair was gray, and his eyes were sunken. His former confident, gentlemanly appearance was completely gone. He looked at me. In his eyes, there was no longer hatred, but a late regret. But I said nothing. I walked past him as if he were a stranger. All the bitterness between us was truly over. I started a new life. I didn't go back to my old company. I decided to become an entrepreneur and founded my own communications agency. I wanted to use my experience and talent to build a new career without depending on anyone. Chloe, who had witnessed the entire process of my story, quit her job and decided to join me. I don't want to work for liars anymore. I want to create a place with you where authenticity and talent are respected, she said. We started from scratch, but with determination and constant effort, our company gradually grew. The initial small successes brought back the joy and confidence I had lost a long time ago. One afternoon, sitting in our new office, looking out at the vibrant cityscape, I received a call from an unknown number. "Hello, is this Emily?" The voice on the other end of the phone was somewhat familiar. "Yes, this is she." "I'm sorry, who is this?" "It's Marcus, Victoria's ex-husband." I was surprised. Why was he calling me? "If you have time, I'd like to invite you for a coffee. I have something to tell you." I hesitated for a moment and then accepted. I was also curious to know what he wanted to say. We met at a quiet cafe. He looked tired, but his gaze was much more serene. He told me about his life after the incident. He and Victoria had officially divorced. His mother, Mrs. Davenport, was very disappointed and shocked. "I called you today," he said, "to apologize and to thank you." "Apologize?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, apologize." He nodded. "I want to apologize for being so stupid, for not seeing the true face of the people around me sooner, and for causing you trouble. And to thank you. Thank you for revealing everything so bravely. If it weren't for you, I would probably still be living a lie." He looked at me with sincerity. "Emily, you are a truly special woman, strong, intelligent, and with great self-respect. Ethan didn't know how to value you. That will be the biggest loss of his life." His words unsettled me a little, but I felt my heart warm. For the first time, a man recognized and respected my true essence. We talked for a long time like old friends. As we parted, he said, "If you ever need help, don't hesitate to call me." I smiled and nodded. I knew that one door had closed, but many others were opening. Life still had many good things waiting for me. Every woman is like a flower that can be trampled by the storm, but if she maintains the roots of her dignity and will, one day she will sprout again and bloom even more radiantly. If you agree with these words, share this story to spread the message about women's rights and the power of regeneration. Time flies, and 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. My life had entered a completely new chapter, a much brighter and more meaningful one. My and Chloe's communications agency, which started in a small office with a few employees, had become one of the most prominent firms in the industry. We carried out numerous successful campaigns for major brands, earning a solid reputation and prestige. I was no longer the weak and love-vulnerable Emily of the past. The business world had made me tough and decisive, but it had not made me lose my sensitivity and delicacy as a woman. I found joy and passion in my work, in creating new value. Each successful project, each client's praise, was a confirmation of my own worth. My relationship with Marcus had also progressed in an unexpected way. After that meeting at the cafe, we stayed in touch as friends. He often asked about my work and gave me useful advice. He also told me about his life, about the pressure of running a large corporation after his mother retired. We found in each other the empathy and understanding of those who have gone through a wound together. Gradually, from friendship, another feeling blossomed between us, a natural and sincere feeling. He was not a romantic man like Ethan. He didn't say sweet things, but by his side, I always felt a complete calm and confidence. He respected me, valued my talent, and always supported me in pursuing my dreams. This love was not as passionate and blind as the previous one, but it was more mature, deep, and solid. One autumn afternoon, at the same restaurant, The Summit, where I once spent my anniversary night alone in tears, Marcus proposed to me. There were no flowers or candles. He simply took my hand and said, "Emily, over these 2 years, you have taught me what a strong and wonderful woman is. I don't promise you a paradise. You have already created your own paradise. I just want the chance to enter that paradise and build a simple and eternal happiness with you. Will you marry me?" I cried, but this time they were tears of complete happiness. I nodded. Our wedding was intimate, with only the closest family and friends. My mother and Mrs. Davenport, 2 powerful women, were now in-laws. They had gone through the storm together, had seen their children grow, and had found an affinity in each other. My life was now truly complete. I had a successful career, a husband who loved and respected me, and a family that always supported me. The painful memories of the past seemed very distant, remaining only as an expensive lesson that had made me value what I had now even more. Sometimes I would hear news of the people from the past. Ethan, after getting out of prison, couldn't regain his position. It is said that he lives a quiet, difficult, and regretful life. Patricia, I learned, had aged a lot and was frail, living alone and isolated. It was said that Victoria had moved to another city to start over, but no one knew exactly how she was living. I no longer hated them. Everyone has to take responsibility for their own decisions. As you sow, so shall you reap. That is the fairest law of life. One Sunday morning, Marcus and I were walking together in the park. The morning sun was gentle, and the air was fresh. He squeezed my hand tightly. "What are you thinking about?" "I was thinking," I smiled at him, "how curious life is. It took one thing from me, but it gave me other, much more valuable things. That's right. I lost a fake marriage, but I found myself again and found a true love and complete happiness. My story did not end with revenge, but with regeneration. I came out of the darkness into the light, and I know that ahead of me is a long road full of sunshine and flowers. I am ready to write the next happy and brilliant chapters of my life." Dear listeners, thus concludes Emily's journey. We have traveled with her to the extremes of emotions, from the full happiness in a false paradise, through the extreme pain when the velvet curtain of deceit was pulled back, to the euphoria of a thrilling turn of events, and finally, the finding of peace and regeneration. As we finish the last story, probably in each of our hearts, there remain not only the echoes of Emily's story, but also reflections on our own lives, the relationships, and the values we pursue. This story is not simply a drama about infidelity and revenge. It contains a deeper meaning. It is an expensive lesson about trust, the value of self-esteem, and the extraordinary strength a woman can display when she is cornered. The first, and perhaps most painful, lesson is the danger of the perfect package. Ethan and his mother created a picture that was too perfect. A husband who loved his wife with devotion, a mother-in-law as attentive as a mother. They offered Emily a paradise, and it was precisely in that sweetness that Emily let her guard down. Doesn't that sound familiar? In life, we often long for perfection. a love without flaws, a family without conflicts. And when we find something similar, we tend to ignore the strange signs, the small ripples. We blame ourselves for being too suspicious, for spoiling something good. The sudden business trips, the late meetings, the receipt found by chance, everything can be excused with logical reasons. But, dear listeners, female intuition, that vague feeling we often call paranoia, can sometimes be the soul's most sophisticated alarm system. Emily's story sends us a strong warning. Never ignore the voice that whispers inside you. When you feel something is wrong, no matter how small, trust your gut. Love requires trust, but trust does not mean blindness. And when the cruel truth is revealed, what can we learn from the way Emily faces it? She didn't collapse, she didn't make a scene, she didn't choose a vulgar method of revenge. Instead, the pain made her stronger and more rational than ever. This is the most important turning point. Instead of sinking into the role of a pitiful victim, Emily transformed into a strategist. She turned tears into weapons, pain into strength. She understood that when dealing with cunning people, emotions are just a weakness. Only reason, planning, and solid evidence were the only way to reclaim justice. In our lives, it's the same. When we face betrayal or injustice, crying and blaming ourselves is inevitable. But don't stay in that quagmire for too long. Allow yourself time to grieve, but then you must stand up. Learn to transform the negative energy of anger and pain into the positive energy of action. Ask yourselves, what can I do to protect myself? What do I need to gather? Who can I trust? And who can I ask for help? Emily's journey demonstrates the importance of preparation. She did not act on impulse. She sought out her friend, she sought out a lawyer, she wove her net in silence, gathering evidence one by one, from the photos of infidelity, the audio files, to the elaborate financial fraud plan. She won, not by luck, but because she prepared for her war carefully and meticulously. This gives us a very realistic lesson. In any conflict, from home to society, empty words and emotions are worthless. Only clear evidence, irrefutable facts, can protect your rights. Especially for women. Always be aware of the family's financial situation, keep important documents, have a basic knowledge of the law. It's not about being calculating or distrustful. It's about being smart and protecting yourself. A bright and humane point in this story is that Emily did not let herself be blinded by personal revenge. When she discovered that Ethan had not only cheated on her but was a professional scammer who had harmed many other people, her fight ascended to a new level. It was no longer a fight to recover her own assets, but a fight for justice. She could have chosen the easier path, reached an agreement with Ethan for evidence, and ended the matter quickly, but she did not. She wanted all the culprits, from the main perpetrator to the accomplices, to answer to the law. This action shows a maturity and a vision that go beyond personal revenge. Sometimes in life, we find ourselves in difficult situations where we have the opportunity to take revenge. But will a momentary revenge bring us true peace, or will it only make our souls feel heavier? Emily's story shows us another path. Fight for justice. When you turn your own struggle into a struggle for a greater value, you are no longer alone. And your victory will not only bring you liberation, but can also be a torch that illuminates the path and gives strength to others in the same situation. And finally, the lesson on regeneration. 5 years of a broken marriage, love and trust shattered. It was a huge loss, but Emily did not let the past bury her future. She rose from the ashes stronger and more radiant. She built her own career, found a new, more valuable love, and most importantly, turned her pain into a mission by starting her own business to empower herself and others. The sweetest revenge is not to see the enemy suffer, but to live a truly happy and meaningful life that they can never achieve. Emily's story seems to tell us this. There is no eternal pain. If this door closes, another will open. After the rain, the earth hardens. The important thing is whether we have the courage to go through the rain, if we have the faith to wait for the sun. Every woman has an extraordinary potential within her. Never underestimate yourselves. Never think that you cannot live without someone. You are your own paradise, and you are the only ones who can decide the happiness of your life. Emily's story has ended, but I believe the lessons we have learned from it will resonate forever. It is a lesson about wisdom in love, strength in the face of adversity, and the tolerance to find peace. Life is not always a bed of roses, but if we maintain our dignity, strive constantly, and believe in good values, we will undoubtedly find true happiness in life. Has Emily's story made you think about your own life? Have you ever had to make a difficult decision between emotion and reason? Leave your comments below to share your stories and viewpoints. Each of your comments is a valuable piece in creating a community where we listen to and understand each other. If this story has touched your heart, give it a like to spread the power of strength. Share this with the women you love, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next deep and meaningful story. Your support is an invaluable engine for us to continue our narrative journey.